If you are just joining us, two young men apparently dressed in long black trench coats opened fire about an hour and a half ago at a high school just outside of Denver in Littleton, Colorado.
The first word was chilling. It only got worse.
But they are reporting multiple fatalities involved in the shooting at the elementary school.
With each new report, the horror deepened.
And this does fulfill a fear that I know we have all had as Americans, that we've reported on extensively here at ABC News, and that is the growing proliferation of lone wolf terrorists in this country. And we could be looking at another example of that.
So obviously the emotional response is first. You know, all of us have that human reaction to such a tragedy, especially involving young kids. It's just unbelievable. And then you start thinking about it from a professional standpoint. Wow, how do you respond to it? How do you manage it? And quite frankly, you have to think about it beyond just the incident itself. You know, a lot of people, the cameras are there, the news is there, but after the cameras and everything's gone away, that community still has to wrestle with the damage inflicted and how do they heal as a community. So you start thinking about that, and you find that the law enforcement community is looked at as a leader. So they oftentimes have to help lead the community through that healing process. You also think about it, I started thinking about it proactively. So what do we do? How are we prepared? First off, are we prepared? If something like this happened in Washtenaw County, in one of our respective cities or townships, how will we respond to that? And then we understand that, you know, you look at all the law enforcement agencies in Washtenaw County, no one agency is probably prepared to address that. Not only the immediate circumstance, but the aftermath, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. How do they help manage that? So we started talking, all the law enforcement leadership, you know, how can we best prepare Washtenaw County in the event something horrific like this happens?
Just like law enforcement, after the tragedy in Sandy Hook, we received many phone calls from parents, from staff, from concerned community members wanting to know whether or not the schools in Washtenaw County were prepared if anything like that was to happen here in our school community. Just like law enforcement, we began coming together and having large-scale conversations around what do we need to do in terms of training, in terms of preparedness, in order to really make sure that if something like that was to happen, we had all the resources, had done all the due diligence and research to really prepare ourselves and our students and our staff. We got together with the Washtenaw County officials, law enforcement, and really started talking about this for a more broad-scale initiative. We looked at training that was happening across the country, looked at training that was happening here locally, and we became exposed to Alice and what Alice was about. We recognized very shortly that we really needed to consider largely adopting Alice in Washtenaw County. Sheriff Clayton, along with his officials, came to one of the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Association committee meetings and talked about their recommendation. Unanimously, the superintendents in Washtenaw County were 100% behind the Alice initiative. We were asked specifically to come together around training, to come together around partnership, and to really ensure that we were going to have uniformity in the practices in Washtenaw County. So from that point on, we began planning what it was going to look like to roll this out over the next 12 to 18 months to really ensure that at the end, our goal of having every school personnel in Washtenaw County trained in Alice was accomplished.
Oh, Jesus. Window! Oh, my God. Everybody down, right now, get down!
So ALICE is an acronym, stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. And it's really just about options. It's just teaching educators about the options they may have at their disposal if they ever get caught in a situation with an active shooter or someone trying to do them harm. And what we often talk about is, stay alive until the police arrive. And so all of these are about options to really give more time for law enforcement to respond, to actually be on scene. So if it's not the shooter ended it and taking themselves out, it is law enforcement showing up on scene and using force in some way to stop the shooter. That's really what it is all about, is actually providing that time barrier. So we often tell the teachers that, the teachers in the classroom, they are the first responders.
I said you went to...
Training it really is 2 hours long, and so we take the teachers through 1 hour of a lecture just talking about what Alice is, and then we actually get into scenarios. So we spend an hour of literally going through and having a shooter come in with a starter pistol so that the teachers can hear what it sounds like, feel the concussion from the weapon, smell the gun smoke of what it actually smells like, put them in a real life situation that if someone came into their building, into their classroom, what does it sound like? What would they do? And you know, their natural human reactions come out. Some of them want to flee and run out of the building. Some want to fight and pick up a chair. Some want to actually just hide and cower. And so really Alice takes them through that and gives them the ability and the opportunity to actually go through a real life, as real as we can make it, situation and scenario to see how they would respond. So they're not waiting until it happens, but really having a plan of action in case it ever happened ahead of time.
I've been a teacher for about 23 years, and I'm used to the standard lockdown drills that we always have, which, you know, they're kind of benign, and you get used to them over the years, certainly, and they become a little less meaningful. This felt very real, and the sheriffs warned us ahead of time that you know, we'd feel the adrenaline flowing when we actually went through the scenarios, and I found that to be quite true. I feel a little bit more equipped. I was actually, as I went through the scenarios, quite surprised that you know, by the second or third scenario, it became almost instinctual. Barricade the door, get ready to swarm the assailant. There was a sense of, okay, I know what to do, and I'm prepared to do it if I have to. So, and I think in this day and age, we've seen enough of these active shooter events around our country. I don't think we have any alternative but to prepare faculty and schools to deal with these kinds of things.
So of course, when you are an educator and you're in the classroom and you're responsible for the lives of close to 30 students, regardless of the age, there's a vulnerability that you feel. But there's also an awesome responsibility that you feel is an honor to not only teach, but also protect these young people. And most of the time, educators are only trained to utilize lockdown. And while lockdown is a component of Alice, one of the things that we stress over and over again is that it is a good starting point, but it must be looked at as just one of the many options that you can do. If it is safer to evacuate, you need to evacuate. If it is safer for you to use some sort of way to distract the shooter, you need to be able and feel comfortable using those distraction techniques. That's new. What we have found from working with law enforcement and looking at the same research and experiences and the knowledge that's come out of Columbine and out of Virginia Tech and some of the other tragedies is that being in that more vulnerable stance of lockdown really has led to more lives being lost. And so it's a shift, it's a paradigm shift for educators to think that, okay, I'm not going to do one size fit all, everybody go in lockdown, everybody stay in lockdown, but that I am now being empowered to use my senses, to use what I hear, to use what I see, maybe even use what I smell, to make some decisions about what is the best thing for me to do.
So what we have to think about is, I'm concerned about guns and guns being out on the street and the availability of guns and what that means in terms of our safety as a community. But the law is going to be what the law is going to be around guns, the ease of getting it or the difficulty of getting it. So what is our scope of control? Our scope of control is really what can we do to mitigate the risk in our most vulnerable population as it relates to gun violence. We're not the experts on everything as it relates to community and quality of life, but we should be the experts as it relates to the public safety piece. And we should be smart enough to understand that we need to enlist the partnership of those other stakeholders that are experts in their area, and coming together, we should come up with an overall community plan that enhances our safety. I have kids or a child still in the school system. I want to have a level of comfort that in the event that someone decides to cause kids harm for whatever reason, we've done everything within our power to reduce the risk of any child being hurt. That should be paramount in our minds. Same thing in the schools. I've yet to meet and run into any school official, superintendent, principal that did not see this as a critical issue. They all see it as a critical issue, and they all want to do their part to enhance the safety of our kids.
Hi, I'm Emmanuel Boykin with LaFontaine Automotive Group. Today I'm here with Sheriff Jerry Clayton from the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office and Chief John Cito from the Ann Arbor Police Department. You know, we've just seen a very powerful episode. Most folks like myself, we have children within the school systems, and you know, this is something that touches us all. So really, guys, I want to get your impression of the training, what you're doing, how you're working together, your feeling on what we've just seen.
Sure. Well, you know, it's more than just the training. It's really an overall community response to the potential of an active shooter in probably one of our most, an area that contains our most vulnerable citizens, our children. There's training, we saw that in Alice, but there's also policy and procedure development. There's training of law enforcement. And we're fortunate in Washtenaw County because we're doing it as a collaborative effort. We realize that, heaven forbid anything happen in Washtenaw County, but if it does, we're not in a position for one agency to handle it, that we'd all have to handle it together. And quite frankly, I think the video shows a little bit of the fruits of those labors. Everyone coming together, working together with one intent in mind. Proactively putting in place a strategy that protects some of the citizens of Washtenaw County.
John, can you tell me a little bit of how the schools are reacting with the different agencies and their feeling and how you guys are working together? Can you touch a little bit on that?
Oh, absolutely. The reason this initiative is so rewarding is there is so much collaboration on every level. There's so much support and buy-in from the school districts. Every school district is wanting to be involved and wanting to help in this issue. And with all of the agencies within Washtenaw County, everybody is participating at every level, not only the law enforcement executives, the sheriff, and the chiefs. The officers on the road are participating in a very energetic way. They know that when there's a time of need, they're going to help each other out and they're going to respond, and we're going to help every community and agency within this jurisdiction, regardless of what patch you wear on your shirt.
From all of us here at the LaFontaine Automotive Group, Sheriff, Chief, we really appreciate having you today, and you know, we really want to just make certain that you guys continue doing what you're doing, and we appreciate what you're doing. So from all of us at LaFontaine Automotive Group and Beyond the Badge, thanks for watching.
This episode of Beyond the Badge was made possible by the LaFontaine Automotive Group of Washtenaw County, home of the 995 oil change, Ann Arbor Buick GMC, Dexter Chevrolet, and Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Saline.